This is the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 9. But when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, be ye not terrified, for these things must first come to pass, but the end is not by and by. This is the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 25, in the Holy Scriptures, and it reads, And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon, and the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the sea and the waves roaring. Shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Wakar Double honors to the elders for preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akim, scattered through the four corners of the globe, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And I say shalom to you Akim out there. And this is a recent news article, what's going on over there in the Middle East. You know, this tension has been stirring up for the past 2 months, from the month of January, now entering February. And this is a news article from pbs.org, and this was published by Arif Chilfa and Jofif Federman of the Associated Press, and it reads, this is world news, alternative world news, as of February 22nd, 2023, at 10:52 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and it reads, at least 10 Palestinians killed in an Israeli raid on West Bank City. Right, and keep this in mind, I believe in the early weeks of January, in the mid days of January, you had a similar situation to this, and it was like 9 people were killed in a Israeli raid of the Palestinians. Now you have this new one a month later. At least 10 people were killed in an Israeli raid in West Bank City. So I just want to add a note to that. And it says, this is West Bank from the Associated Press. Israeli troops on Wednesday entering a major Palestinian city in the occupied West Bank in a rare daytime arrest operation triggering fighting that killed at least 10 Palestinians and wounding scores of others. The raid, which reduced...
I've watched them all.
Oh, yeah.
I'm trying to see that mailman come from down late.
Yeah, he probably was a little late.
We got the bills for this week.
Sure did.
The gas truck, probably read the bills.
Mm-hmm.
I think they read them every 2 months.
Oh, okay.
Watch TV and get out of the shoe.
Alright.
I'm finna clean kitties thing out. I got them off.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I put my gloves on the
Right.
wall. Remove the worms on there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kitty.
That's good. She ate that food.
She ate the shit out of meat. She be gonna eat meat too. I just washed that hot sauce off.
Right.
In the morning, I'm gonna give her some more. I'm gonna give her about 3 now. Couldn't up enough food.
Right.
Cats be on meat too. I had the meat in there all the time. I just ain't gave it to her in the can.
Mm-hmm.
I could have, mash it up together. She could have ate it.
Yeah.
They get constipated too, just eating dry food.
Right.
Give it to her like every 2 months.
Yeah.
That eat some meat, because she was about to take bird shit. She said, keep this out there. And she was going to bed. She eat bird shit up. She did that twice.
Right.
She be wanting to eat meat because she gonna smell it when you cook it.
Right.
That cat's smart.
Sure. Yeah. Salakia, I was talking to a OG. But continuing on with the reading, I'm going to read it again for edification's sake of the sit-down lesson. It says, Israeli troops on Wednesday entering a major Palestinian city in the occupied West Bank in a rare daytime arrest operation triggering fighting that killed at least 10 Palestinians and wounding scores of others. The raid, which reduced to a building to rubble, left a series of shops riddled with bullets, one of the bloodiest battles in nearly a year of fighting in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. A 72-year-old man was among the dead, and 102 people were wounded, Palestinian officials said. That's just after this happened for a second time, that goes to show you that it's gonna be more resistance and more rebellions from the Palestinians. You know, they the most likely scenario they're gonna retaliate. You know, because there haven't been no peace in that land. You know, because these two been going at it for a very long time. Was the IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Force, versus the Palestinians, and the organization of Hezbollah in the Gaza Strip and throughout the West Bank as well too. So these tensions definitely been stirring up for the last 2 months. But continuing on with the reading, it says the brazen raid complied with the high death toll raised the prospect of the further bloodshed. A similar raid last month, just like I mentioned, was followed by a deadly Palestinian attack outside a Jerusalem you-know-what, and the Hamas militant groups warned that its patience is running out. It's a move that could further raise tensions. Israeli West Bank settler organization said that the Israeli officials have approved construction of nearly 2,000 new homes in West Bank, probably for the small hats. Settlements. The Israeli government did not immediately conform the decision, which came 2 days after the UN Security Council approved a watered down statement opposing settlement construction. The Israeli military said it entered Nubius on Wednesday to arrest 3 wanted militants suspecting in previous shooting attacks in the West Bank, including the killing of an Israeli soldier last fall. The militants usually conduct raids at night in what it says a tactical meant to reduce the risk of civilian casualties. Well, that's not the case, because I remember in the last month raid, they killed an innocent old woman. I believe she was like in her 80s. Now with this new raid, y'all kill a innocent 72-year-old civilian. Somewhat for trying to reduce killing casualties of civilians. Yeah, right. But I'm gonna read that again. It says the military usually conducts raids at night, which is a tactical meant to reduce the risk of civilian casualties. Well, I guess y'all avoided that. I guess y'all didn't avoid that, I meant to say. I guess y'all just shoot any Palestinian on sight. I guess every Palestinian is bad, huh? That's what's kind of thinking in their mind, you know. It says to took advantage of a rare window opportunity after intelligence service tracked down the men in a hideout and warning they pose an imminent threat. The army said it surrounded the building as the men to surrender, but instead they opened fire. When one of them militants tried to flee the building, he was shot and killed, said the Lieutenant Colonel Richard Haig, a military spokesperson. The military then fired missiles at the house, he added, leaving it ruins, and killed the other 2 men. A recent former armed group based in the old city of Nablus called the Lion's Den, which was surged in a prominence over the past month, conforming the militants were its members. During the raid, the military said armed men in the city shot heavily towards the forces, which respond with live fire. It says other hurled rocks and explosions at the troops. There were no Israeli casualties. Time-stamped security footage widely shared online appears to show 2 unarmed young men running down a street. Gunshots were heard and both fall to the ground. with one hat flying off his head. Both bodies remain still. Hetch called the video problematic and said the militants were looking into it. In the old city of Lamos, if I pronounced that right, people started at the rubble that had been large homes in the centuries of old Kasbah. From one end to the other, shops were riddled with bullets. Parts cars were crushed, blood stains, and the cement ruins. Furniture from the destroyed homes was scattered among mounds of the burst. The Palestinian Health Ministry said 102 people were wounded and 6 of them were in critical condition. Various Palestinian militant groups claimed 6 of the dead, including the 3 from Lion's Den Target in the raid as members, but a 72-year-old man was also killed. There were no immediately word on whether the others belonged to the armed groups. Last month, Israeli killed 10 militants in a similar raid in a northwest bank. The following day, a lone Palestinian gunman opened fire near a you-know-what in an East Jerusalem settlement, killing 7 people. Days later, 5 Palestinian militants were killed in an Israeli arrest raid. Elsewhere in the West Bank, there was followed by a Palestinian car rammed that killed 3 Israelis, including 2 young brothers in Jerusalem. The fighting comes at a sensitive time, later than 2 months after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu new hardline government took office. Right, because you've been having those recently protests over there. I believe it was like 1,000 to 2,000 people. And they was against Benjamin Netanyahu's new government that's taking over in Israel, in Tel Aviv, I believe. And it says the government is dominated by the ultra-nationalists who have pushed for tougher action against Palestinian militants. Israeli media has quoted, I believe, and then there was another protest of the Western Wall over there. I believe it was the day before yesterday. It was the small hatters protesting against soldiers. So there's a lot of activity going on there. And then you got earthquakes over there as well too. So it's a lot of activity going on over there in the Middle East. And it says the Israelis media have quoted top security officials and expressing concerns that this could lead to even more violence. The cabinet concludes a number of West Bank settlers, one of whom has been promised authority over settlement construction. Yesha, if I pronounce that name right, the settlement counselor announced that Israelis planning officials have granted approval to nearly 2,000 new homes and settlements across the West Bank. The defense body that grants the approvals, the civil administration, said the meeting was still underway Wednesday, that an announcement will only be issued on Thursday after a 2-day session is over. The Palestinian and most of the international community said that the settlement built on occupied lands are illegal and obstacles to peace. Over 700,000 settlements now live in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, territories captured by Israel in 1967 and sought by Palestinians for a future state. And it says the Israeli decision comes in the wake of the UN presidential statement that strongly criticized settlements. The U.S. blocked that would have been a legally binding council resolution. American diplomats claims to have extracted an Israeli pledge to halt artillery action in order to block the resolution. The approval of new settlement by Israel, what appears to defy that claim. In the Gaza Strip, a spokesperson for the ruling Hamas militant groups issued a vile threat following the Milwish raid. The resistance in Gaza is observing the enemy's escalation crimes against our people. in the occupied West Bank, and patience is running out, said Abdul Abatha, if I pronounce his name right, Salakia, a spokesperson for the group. It says Hamas has battled Israel in 4 wars since seizing control of Gaza in 2007. An Israeli official has expressed concerns about raising tensions ahead of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, which is coming up very soon, which begins in the second half of March. It says at least 55 people have been killed in the West Bank and East Jerusalem this year, at a pace that could exceed last year's death toll. Last year, nearly 150 Palestinians were killed in the West Bank and East Jerusalem, making it the deadliest in those areas since 2004, according to the figures by the Israeli Fights Group. It says Israel said that most of those killed have been militants by other youth protesting the incursions, and other peoples not involved in the confrontation have also been killed. An AP tally has found that just under half of those killed belonging to the militant groups. Israeli says the military raids are meant to dismantle militant networks and throttle future attacks, while the Palestinians viewed them as entrenchment of Israel, open-ending 55-year occupation. Israel captured the West Bank and East Jerusalem and Gaza Strip in 1967 in the Mideast War territories. The Palestinians seek for their hope for independent state, right? Because that shows you that the two-state solution is not going to work. While these two other sides still have that hostility towards one another, there's going to be no two-state solution. Just like Anthony Blinken came back with, I believe it's like a few days ago, Anthony Blinken came back with the idea of a two-state solution. That two-state solution is not going to work. Because like they always say, there's going to be no peace in the Middle East. And I'm going to bring out the scriptures again. This is the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 9. But when ye shall hear of wars and commotions, be ye not terrified, for these things must first come to pass. But the end is not by and by. Right, because you're going to continue to have the clash wars and proxy wars and commotions wars between these two different nations, like the scripture says. Nations shall rise against nations and kingdom against kingdoms in Matthew 24, verse 7, as that stated. And then the Luke 21 and 25 of the uncertainty of the distress of nations. And that's what we are seeing with the uproars and the people in the world, with the clashes between two different nations. Just like for an example over there in the Middle East, what's currently taking place over there, the Palestinians versus the Israelis, and the Hezbollah organization over there in the Gaza Strip in the West Bank versus the Israelis, the IDF, which is the Israeli Defense Force, And I'm going to bring out Matthew 24 and 7. And this is only going to intensify. These clashes between these two different nations is just only going to heat up even more and more and more. Expected to see more retaliation attacks and more threats from the Hezbollah and from the resistance of the Palestinians against the Israelis, the Israeli Defense Force. Expected to see more tension increase more and more and more. Expected to see lone wolf attacks by these Palestinians against the Israelis and the small hatters. So this is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 7. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places, right? And that's what we're seeing. Nations rising up against nations, kingdom against kingdoms. As this latest new raid, this is the second time this happened within the last 2 months, as at least 10 Palestinians were killed in an Israeli raid in West Bank. Like I mentioned again, expect to see more hostilities and tensions between both sides increase more and more and more. Because the nations shall rise against nations are definitely heating up in the latter days. It's just only going to intensify and heat up in that region over there in the Middle East. So with that, I would like to give all praises and glory and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Makar Kadash. Double honors to the elders for preaching this word truthfully and sincerely. And shalom to the Akia, scattered through the four corners of the globe, preaching the word truthfully and sincerely. And until next time, I will say shalom.